Oh, we did. Sorry, Courtney left. We got to wait till Courtney comes back.
I saw Kevin outside somewhere. I'm going to go round him up.
He's on the phone. All right, so now that we have a quorum, we'll go on to a mic check, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Gradine?
Here.
Vice Chair Hopkins?
Here.
Board Member Miller?
Here.
Board Member Tripp? Thank you.
Thank you. And the first order of business is public comment. And I believe we have at least one person who would like to speak and address the board. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the board on an item not on today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to Chris.
Oh, you having me for now? Okay, thank you, Chair Godin, board members. My name is Chris Manson-Hing from the AIA Santa Barbara. A few points. This is Architecture Week, and the architectural flags are flying on State Street. Oh, yep. My name is Chris Manson with the AIA Santa Barbara. This is Architecture Week, and the flags are flying on State Street. I would like to announce our 8th annual Architect Tours that is happening this Saturday on October 1st. It's from 10 to 4 with an after party at one of the projects. I'd like to say for the public that's out there, all of the information that I'm going to show you now is available at the AIASB.com website. And when you first pull it up, this is what you see on the screen. And then if you press on the AIA Architect Tours, you can get the same information that I'm showing you here. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through. This is the scene of where the after party will be, which is the SB Cast building that is on the tour. Again, I'll just run through some projects. So it's the Spirit of Santa Barbara, past and present, is this year's tour theme. And so we have a lot of old historic buildings and some new modern buildings that juxtapose those within the community. The Jorgensen Ranch House, which is had been granted a work of a significant local architect by the city of Santa Barbara, is an original Adobe building that was recently remodeled. The property has a new landscaping and has a studio on it. Santa Barbara Center for Art, Science, and Technology, SB Cast, a recently completed building here. This is where the after party will be also. It's a mix of artwork, work and live spaces. And so it's very contemporary in its design, and again, it's one of the balances within the community. Santa Barbara County Courthouse, the mural room, which was recently remodeled. I would say not remodeled, but new lighting, and all of the murals were refinished, or what's the word for it? Restored. That's it. Thank you very much. The Braille Institute, and this is an interesting one on the tour, where there are 3 times during the day, 11, 1, and 3, tour participants will be able to do interactive work with vision simulating glasses in the sensory garden, the teaching kitchen, and the ceramic studio, experiencing the same sort of things that the visibly impaired people would have to go through to do things within kitchens, actually making ceramics, etc. So that's something that should be quite hands-on. Inside Out Art Department, Physics, Math, Psychology Hall at Westmont, another more modern educational facility, has an inside-outside component. The very modern, the contextual contortionist, a very modern residence for an industrial designer. And one can see how the building is almost put together in that style and in that character. And then the Modern Will, which is a very old building originally constructed in the 1900s and now been refurbished and reused with a multitude of different uses within that space. Again, all the details are here at aiasb.com. If anyone would, you can get to know about tickets and how the tour is announced, when it starts. It's this Saturday. We welcome you all, and thank you, board, for having me here to present it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to see.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We'll go on to approval of the minutes for the Architectural Board for September 12th. And we'll start by taking comments on those minutes, please.
I have a comment on item number 1.
All right.
Number 2, applicants submitting AUD project should be required to put up story poles. I'm a little uneasy about that. I think in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. I think we already have the ability to ask for that.
Yeah. That was one board member's comments.
I don't know if that is the opinion of everyone on the board or not.
Right. Well, I would take this list as being just a listing of the comments. We didn't vote on it, so that was not unanimous.
But I don't think that this list is going on to the Planning Commission, and I don't know if that expresses the opinion of the board in general.
It's a good point.
Would you like to just say some applicants submitting should be
Sure.
required?
Sure, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
And then item number 5, that is this is relating to affordability, pretty technical and very in-depth planning item that seems to me, although maybe important, it's kind of outside the purview of the board.
Right.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think Mr. Chair, in general, that we should qualify as many of these as possible by either saying some board members or a board member, because it does seem like we're making recommendations as a full
It's like
board.
a unanimous board.
Yeah.
And then item number 6 as well.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Are these comments intended to go onto the Planning Commission?
No, I'm not quite, let's see. Well, yeah, I mean, these are, yes, they will be. They will be going back to the Planning Commission. But I'm just wondering, board member comments, I mean, those comments were in the list, so
But it was
obviously they were brought up, and
Mr.
discussed.
Wittash speaking for 3/4 of the time. So it's predominantly his comments.
So are you saying one board member would like the city to discuss or to
That
study
would be
ways to regulate
an
affordable?
accurate reflection of the
Okay.
comments.
And then the same with number 6?
Or strike that one altogether.
Well, I don't want to strike it since it was in,
Okay.
it was a comment, but was it one person again who?
One
It
board
was one
member.
person, yes.
Okay. All right, we'll just clarify that then.
Great.
Thanks.
I think it would be a clarification also to, instead of it being titled board member comments, I wonder if you could insert the word individual board members made the following comments. Because we did not vote on it. Simply was not part of the process. Any other corrections or comments? On item number 2, just a small adjustment under the motion. Number 2, it says provide more details regarding existing pedestrian and street lighting. We were asking for photographic documentation. So you could delete more details and add photographic documents. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then we need a first and a second for approval of the minutes for September 12th.
First.
Scott? Let's see, I think I'm the only other board member that was there, so I need to second it. And we probably have 3 abstentions as well because they were not here.
Oh,
So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstained? 3 abstentions? All right. Consent calendar for September 19th, please.
Yep. Item A, 1502 San Pasqual Street was granted indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer with comments. Item B, 251 South Hope Avenue, project design approval of landscaping and indefinite continuance to consent with a comment. Item C, 205 Santa Barbara Street, project design and final approval with a condition. Item D, 649 Pilgrim Terrace Drive, project design and final approval with conditions. Item E, 220 West Gutierrez Street, final approval as noted. Item F, 401 Aurel Del Mar, final approval with a condition. And item G, 225 East Haley Street, was granted final approval of review after final. And those were reviewed by Board Member Howard Wittosh and Courtney Miller on items B and C, and Phil Suding on item A, HLC Landscape Architect.
Okay, thank you, Susan. We need a first and a second for approval of those minutes.
First.
Second.
Hopkins and Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then for consent calendar for today, please.
Yep. Today, item A, 3304 State Street, was granted an indefinite continuance, and item B at 2334 De La Vina continued indefinitely to ABR staff. And those were reviewed by Chair Gradine and Board Member Miller.
Okay, we need a first and a second, please.
First.
Hopkins and Miller again, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements, please.
Yeah, the only 2 is Board Members Kung and Wittosh will be absent today.
Thank you. And any subcommittee reports? Okay, we can go on to the first item, which is 116 East Coda. And this is a project which previously had project design approval, and there's been some changes, so a new PDA is being requested. Project description has been revised somewhat. It's a proposal for a new 4-story mixed-use building on a 10,865 square foot vacant parcel adjacent to Plaza Veracruz. The project includes 15 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and residential units, and approximately 738 square feet of commercial space. Did those numbers change from the last time?
They do need to be changed.
Oh, they're not changed yet?
Actually incorrect, right.
Okay, so I won't read it then.
A couple of items to clarify.
All right.
So,
So Mark Kirkhart, Principal Design Architects.
Sam Maphis, Landscape Architect.
Ken Vermillion, Design Architects.
Welcome.
So you guys have reviewed this extensively with another firm.
Yes.
And we have been brought on as the excuse me, architects of record, executive architects to take the project forward. So in doing our code review of the previous scheme, we came across several things that didn't really work in terms of the way that it was designed. Very, very minor, just little adjustments, not the least of which was not allowing us to exit onto that little quote-unquote alley along the park there to the east. So we have a parking garage that is dead end as opposed to exiting out the back, and a few other, once again, very small issues to make sure we could get the ventilation in the garage and a few other things. So Ken, as the project designer, is going to take you through those handful of small revisions.
Okay.
So first of all, a couple of clarifications with regard to the project summary. There are 14 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. There is one 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit, which is the front uppermost unit on Coda Street, and that came about in various ABR comments. stepping the building back. The other is that the current commercial square footage is 988 net. The 738 was a holdover from the previous design, which actually wasn't per the last design that you saw anyway. It was much larger than that.
Did you say 988?
Yes,
Okay.
Total unit count again? 16?
15.
15.
15 units total. So we are under the impression that the project design approval item is the removed access road egress for the vehicles onto the Plaza Veracruz
we look at
property. So that
That would affect the Coda Street elevation too, right?
Well, actually, it does very little. So, per the code, less than 25 parking spaces, you are not required to have a two-way entrance drive. So, we are able to maintain an 11-foot wide entrance off Coda, which allows for ingress and egress.
Okay.
So, there is very little effect to the ground level along Coda.
Okay.
And, of course, the effect along the park is that we no longer have a functioning gate. We just have a nice screen.
Okay.
So that's an improvement, actually.
You mentioned the turning radiuses on the garage, on the parking.
Yes.
Point to what did change in the plan here?
There was no change to the width of the drive at all. But if you note from the previous design, the commercial space did something like this.
Okay.
So it didn't allow the necessary 25 and a quarter radius turn for that van to get into that first lot. So that's why you see this chunk being removed from the commercial.
Okay.
But like we said, commercial simply reconfigured itself a little bit longer on the alley side or the park side, so that we were able to maintain roughly 1,000 square feet.
So this moved this way?
A little bit, yes.
Are the setbacks the same? from-
Yes. Yes, we're maintaining the increased planter along the park frontage as requested, the 18-inch.
Some of the other changes, real quick, I'll just jump in here. On the ground floor site plan, we did not have planting in this area, which now we are introducing palms and vertical trees coming from the ground. So these will actually be grates at the base, so you'll be walking along a path here, and those trees, if you will come up through the second floor. So that was another change that we didn't have before. We had planting on the two main sides, the park side and Coda side, but there was, and then the courtyard back here, but we didn't have these. So you'll see how that transpires a little bit in the
Is
in
that the
second
line
floor.
of what's open above?
No, it's the small dashed line.
Oh,
So
okay.
another point about that
There's
is
a portal through the second layer that you'll see on the next.
there's 3 separate openings where the palm trees are allowed to go through. That does a number of things for us, not the least of which is allow natural ventilation for the garage. So the previous design did not meet the amount of required natural ventilation open area for the garage to be naturally ventilated. So this helps us achieve that. It also allows for palm trees to be planted in grade rather than on deep podium deck planters. And frankly, it makes the darkest part of the garage a much more light space. It's got plenty of natural light down there. The other thing is we've added vine pockets in the grade level, so that now takes the green wall that was originally planted on the podium deck going up the side next to the mattress store building. We now can get those down in grade and make the green wall actually occur in the garage as well. So that's a benefit to the appearance and feel of the garage.
Were there formerly tables here? Is that changed?
There were not.
That was a planter.
Yes. So you can see we've stepped the planter back a bit to allow for some seating options. We feel, and the owner feels, that it's important to contribute to the amenities of that commercial space, and having an active corner there seems to be an appealing option. So our understanding is the design approval is needed for the alley change for vehicular egress. Then there are a few other items that are just, as we consider in progress review items, per the code issues that we found and other design issues that the board had already raised in the previous June 6th hearing date. So we'll move on to those as well.
Well, here you can see the openings in the, so we still
Right.
have the planters that were there before, but introduce the openings to get light and also have the ability to have those palm trees coming all the way up through there.
Right. You can see there's lots of landscaping in this court area, which we've maintained, and it's a big part of the project and always has been. And so the desire is to keep that as open and nice as possible. The other, I'll say, more important change was the rear stair. So if you recall, the previous design had the rear stair around this position. Now that made it complicated to get from the enclosed stair, which it wasn't in the previous design, but we know code says it needs to be an enclosed egress vertical stair. So once you go into that stair, you need to be protected. So you need to get from that stair, and maybe on the lower level, it's easiest to illustrate this. You need to transition from that stair to the egress corridor along the back of the garage. So this allows for a much easier transition. If the stair were to remain here, you would have to again be protected from the end of the stair all the way out to the public right-of-way. Therefore, meaning that any access to any part of this property would have to go through this egress path. So we felt that was a much better solution. The other issue with that stair is it's a 4-story building, therefore one stair needs to go to the roof. So that stair tower had to grow by one level to get up to the roof. And we felt that stair was a much better stair to take to the roof than the front one on Coda, because we obviously get to push that taller mass to the back of the property. So the effect from Coda Street is minimized as much as possible.
Okay. So this stair tower used to go to the roof, and now it doesn't? Is that what you're
Neither
saying?
stair tower went to the roof.
Okay.
We found
Neither
in our
did.
code
Yeah.
that
But one has to.
one has to.
Okay, all right.
So that stair tower gets to stay in the almost exactly the same location. The changes to that stair were this. So code says that the stair needs to be protected from the interior of the building. So where this currently was not, or before, was not a protected stair, we have now made it a protective stair with the 2-hour wall enclosure. The benefit of that is that allows that stair now to be open, essentially. So what we've done is we've created a screened stair at the front. So that does a number of things. It reduces the mass of that front tower. If you remember, that was a very solid front tower with a couple of punched openings. In our design, it's a completely open, mesh-covered stair.
Okay.
We don't change the court below. This is open air all the way to the sky.
It also required that we push that stair 10 feet from the property line. So
Right.
it had to move over like 18 inches or something to the
18 inches or less, we moved it to allow for this to be open. So with minimal change to where it's placed, we've allowed the stair to be a much more active appearing element from the street.
Okay.
So you'll get to see. We covered that. The other thing that our design does, and you'll see in the elevations, is we took note of the board's wish to change this fifth element, as it's referred to be more different from the other four that step down along the park elevation. So what we've done in our design is we've formally made that front piece include the stair from Coda. So let's run to the elevations. So first of all, these are the 4 units that are virtually unchanged from the previous design. And so what we did is we dropped the parapet height, increased the ceiling height of that front unit so that this form looks much different than these. It's elongated. It's got an overhang along the front like was requested previously. And then on the front, now all of this is the same. The upper unit you can see this roof piece gets to come and include the stair. So this is the new open mesh stair. These are entry balconies for those front units, so that's still nice and open as it was. But we feel that the inclusion of this stair mass into this piece helps further differentiate it from the remaining 4 elements. And so those are essentially the only design changes that are
Something
visible.
different than the previous design happening here. I don't remember this continuous kind of bulkhead form. Was that
Correct.
changed?
It was changed. So what they had were a series of these shear walls, which we show recessed, out in the plane of this front covering. And all we're saying is those are now free to move back per structural, where structural is probably going to want them to be.
Look at the previous drawing. Sorry to
Sure,
interrupt.
sure.
I just like to compare.
And so while we show the same amount of open space and open mesh into the garage, we are simply saying that it's not a piece of that outermost facade that it's allowed to recess.
Thank you.
Right, so here's the big solid tower with a couple of punched openings.
if we
It's a little
can-
hard to read.
Yeah. They all like that?
And actually, that's the previous design. The newest one is the bottom one.
Oh,
The way they did it, they showed the previous and then the revised.
Is there another?
Next sheet. You have the,
Yeah.
right here?
Well, I was looking for one that wasn't so colored, but
I
that's
think they're
fine.
all colored.
They are colored? Okay.
So you can see that we've still got those shear wall locations. The reality is those shear wall locations are going to be dependent on the columns in the garage, not have any bearing to what these shear walls are doing with the wood framing above. So that's why we've replaced them to where the columns are going to be in the garage. Therefore, we didn't see the benefit of bringing them in alignment with this, because it can't be in alignment with this, is what I'm saying. So in addition to that, we've recessed them so that they become a more minor element along that facade.
And those columns are determined by where you've got,
Bay
Structural
widths,
grid.
structural parking,
there's
structural
no way
grid.
to alter that grid so that it does line up.
It's based on 3 bay parking spaces, so there is no way it's going to relate to these shear walls.
But if you wanted to, you could have a vertical element that was not the structure in front of that.
We could
Yeah.
build a secondary vertical element.
Then it starts
But-
impacting the amount of clear area for ventilation.
Correct. So we wouldn't want to have this as a shear wall and then do it in another location, because now we've cut down our screened ventilation for the parking. And we need all of that.
And so
To
this
me.
is a continuous, plaster?
Yes, right now it's considered to be plaster. And it folds into the rear elevation as well. So that plaster facade would be seen as, it's forward of this by about 3 feet. So there is it is almost a horizontal shelf piece that the rest of the building will sit on top of.
And I think when we get to the final, we would probably have those painted a darker color so that it's kind of in shadow along with the landscape, and not, everything's looking white right now.
What is the change in plane between these two items? How many inches?
In plan, we can see it on the plan view. It's, I think, roughly 18 inches or. So we could make those thickened, perhaps, but it cuts down on the planters at the grade. And again, it wouldn't relate to these pieces, so we thought it was best to let them be in the background and not be as dominant. And unfortunately, we don't know yet how wide those need to be. It would be based purely on structural.
And your guard treatment changed too?
So they had a few elements that were not closed rail. So we chose to continue this form through, since we were losing these, And we do think that this plaster would be a differentiated color in the end. But yeah, we highlighted the fact that this piece would run continuous and not just stop. Because again, they've got it stopping in line with this shear wall for the residences above, which don't have any bearing on the commercial space or the structure below.
And they're not in the same plane anyway.
No. There's quite a relief between the two planes, so.
Well,
We take a look at the front.
yeah. Let's go to the front.
Let's see. We still have the planters that are on the second floor, as you can see, the greenery, which on the
Right.
landscape plan you'll see. Those all are maintained.
And we've got a full planter across the front of the commercial space. So where they interrupted it by that break, we've got a planter all the way across. So our planting runs all the way across the front commercial space.
This is no longer the kind of board vocabulary, it's more of a solid.
Yeah, this is the rear stair way back,
Yeah.
111 feet back from Coda Street.
So I know one of the things that was governing the design last time was a height restriction, and now you've added an additional floor at the stair tower. Isn't that not a problem? Does that mean you'd be having to go to planning commissioners?
Well, the stair to the roof doesn't count as additional. It's
Architectural
a
projection for
Right.
health and safety.
It's a doghouse for the health and safety of the
Okay.
roof. And the materiality of this is again on a property line, this wall, so it needs to be rated, of course.
And then how far is the guardrail right at the face of the building back there, or is it held back? Or
This is the safety guardrail for the people working on
is
the
it
roof.
at the
and
parapet edge, or is it held back from the parapet? Or?
It's well back of this face.
Okay.
So the bridge that gets you to the roof is in plan. We can look at it in plan.
That's not an occupied roof for the residents.
Right. Okay.
It's only the safety,
I can kind of see
OSHA,
the-
under 4 stories for
Right.
window cleaning
Yeah.
and
Well, let's stay on this
maintaining
until we look at the roof in a little bit.
Right. So the one benefit we feel of that stair, because the stair needs to be taller to reach the roof, we've pushed it further back from Coda Street. So now, if you were seeing this design, this piece would be up taller to get to the roof, and that would be, 20 or 30 feet in front of this, where we've placed it back here.
Got it.
So this piece takes.
So
Takes
I'm
your
also
eye.
noticing that looks like the balcony setbacks at the upper floors are pushed closer to the property line there.
And that was to allow for a width deep enough to be accessible, because some of those doors are out on that side. So adaptable is what we need to maintain. There are many changes to the floor plans of the units that had to be made based on adaptability that were not.
once you have a
dealt
deck, it has to be adaptable or accessible, has to be 5 foot to turn around. You can't have a 4-foot deck. So,
There you go.
And that has to happen from the common space, not from just the bedroom. So
Does the balconies in front or the projections in front also get pushed out at all, or how did that? Because that was something that was looked at really carefully. Is how
that front line is exactly the same, correct. The only change to the upper is we've placed a shear wall area of non-glass. They had glass all the way across the front. We think Title 24 wise that's going to be a challenge, and certainly structurally we'd need some kind of frame in there. So we're showing some solid material there, and then the aperture between these two plaster masses is reduced by 2 feet or something for that front window.
Where's the residential entry in this elevation?
Residential energy is this right here, this gate.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yes, same place. This is all open. You look through to the trees and everything beyond around the elevator tower, which is here.
So this plane is way back, is that right?
Yes, that's the elevator, right. So this is the open slot all the way through, just as it was before. We didn't change the elevator placement at all.
So the difference between this and that is it 15 feet?
It's the depth of the stair, so it's plus 20 or so. Correct. And so here's our much more open stair where, from the street you can see people moving up and down the building, whereas before it was a almost completely solid tube.
Is that a roll-up door?
No, that would be their idea of the siding material, horizontal banding material.
Okay. And so there's just a few remnants of that. Is that right here?
Correct. We added it in a few areas.
Okay, I think I'm going to, unless there's other essential things you need to go over, I'm going to open public comment.
Well, we did make some changes to the upper levels. We removed a residential storage room on the third level and made it a community room. So that will be a community benefit area to be a multi-use room, a small kitchenette in it.
Does that affect elevation?
Nope, almost.
We can look at the other two elevations.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the roof deck got actually bigger. And the roof deck now includes a built-in barbecue and a small counter with a sink and faucet. So from the rear, we've maintained the planting yard that's open to grade.
So this is previously what was approved.
Correct. So that swatch hasn't changed. We've added a window to the community room. This is the new stair tower location. And this planter remains as designed. So we've got 3 large tea trees, I believe, planted in this planter here in the courtyard. And then you'll see the palm trees in the background along that go down all the way through to parking.
Is this a different material? It just didn't print? Or what's that?
No, we because this is a property line wall, we haven't come to decide exactly how we're going to treat that. This property is under development as well, we believe, and so the reality is there could be something in place of that, and so we hadn't decided definitively yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of want to hear your comments because we weren't really sure what that was. What is
Yeah.
right on a property line? Is it just a recess painted dark or something? Is that what?
Well, they went to siding material because we were asked them to provide a breakup to that surface.
Yeah, we can do that if that's what you want.
This appears different too.
Right, so we left a bit of the CMU exposed on the ground level. There's currently 1-story buildings built right up to our property line. So we let this piece read as the material that it will be built from.
Okay, that's all covered up then.
Yeah, then we would do stucco above. And you can start to see that this would in turn become that bar that goes down the park side. You can see how it's a bit differentiated from the units themselves. So that could be something that we would study as we said, making it a different color stucco. You can start to see where that...
Okay.
More elevation.
What's the mesh material?
It's either going to be perforated metal or literally a metal mesh. Yeah, it's a guard wall material that allows obviously view.
So your drawing's not showing the building in front, but that's
Right.
still there, obviously.
Right, roughly 21 feet tall, but that's where our green wall will be, covering that facade.
Okay, so
We can look quickly at so the 3D, that's the previous design's view from the Coda Street. And this would be the new view, incorporating this into this piece. You can see the back piece with the taller stair tower is back behind the upper roof deck cover.
Is this meant to look very attenuated in that bin?
What's that?
Is that meant to look that attenuated in this vertical line here? It looks like it's about a 4-inch.
Yeah, it'll be slightly pushed back from the edge of this metal.
Okay.
You're talking about the plaster surrounding?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of having a little contrast with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We think having that mesh on the front and we'll have that lit very interestingly. So at night it'll be kind of a bit of a lantern, not lighting the night sky, but just lighting inside there. But you'll be able to see people moving up and down. We think it kind of animates the front of the building instead of just having a big block for a stair.
Right. And we've again done some of this horizontal material in this stair, in this wall that separates the stair from the rest of the building. So trying to bring in some more of that materiality.
And the reason you went from this to this to this, why doesn't this correspond either to that or to that?
This one is recessed, so this one we maintained in that same plane so that this piece could stay in line. These balconies come out a little bit forward, so we wanted to accentuate that a little bit. So this would be more of a perforated metal idea, which would gel with the perforated metal panels on the park side. I'll show you that. So these guys we're maintaining per the original design, and so we wanted to tie those into that idea. Now you can see the different tone and maybe how that differentiates itself. We've got the large green wall against that building. I thought of another small green wall that could be more solid than the rest. We can't let these be too densely planted because we lose our ventilation for the garage. So that would be a different planting altogether.
The green walls along there, although the sheer walls, I guess, could be green.
Correct.
We do have some vines along there, some aloe vines along the park.
That don't get very,
But then the interior court is going to be very shady, so that'll be something like a clinging Boston ivy or something that can handle the shade internal to that passage.
What's going on with this?
I think,
Is there
Kevin, even though I don't
we
want to
any
shut down
questions?
at all, yeah, I just want to open public comment. I'm not
Okay.
sure if we have anyone from the public that'd like to comment on this project, but I just want to do that and get that out of the way. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to questions. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have this gray element here and then the white. What do we have going on there?
So it's just a difference in material or color.
Okay.
So we were looking at this guy wrapping back and then doing a slightly different detail in the front. And so that opens that up to be a slightly different material. Or it could be stucco with a different color variation.
Can
Any other questions?
we
from the
just
board?
compare that really quickly with the previous? Maybe
would
just
be the
separate.
previous.
Maybe just separate those two. So we can- One more question. The parapet height on these guys, that grew. Is there a reason?
It didn't. It's actually 45. This one came down to differentiate it from this one. So this was the same as these, but we heard the comment from the previous that this block should look different than these four, and so we've lowered this.
But it's certainly
Plus, it lowers
chunkier.
the build.
The
building.
eyebrows have gone away here.
Yeah, they're definitely
The
chunkier.
uppermost eyebrows have gone away.
Okay.
It's a northeast-facing balcony, so we didn't want to make those darker. We wanted the upper units to have more light on their balconies.
Where else is there wood?
Wood, a horizontal banded material, which may or may not be wood. So while we lost it on the exterior of this, we put it into this panel that separates the stair from the units. We've got it as infill here in the slot, and then we've got the panel here and on the side.
Okay.
And then the rest of these are essentially, minus the uppermost eyebrow, identical. Open railings with a small piece of solid rail and stucco parapets.
Did you say this was metal, or
That's one thought, that could be metal. I know that these edges are metal per the original design, and we like that idea. So this either gets a different color stucco or perhaps it's metal. We'd be open to exploring.
Where's the ceiling height in here?
That's a 10-foot clear ceiling.
And
The
the
rest
others
of them are 8'8", give or take, pending structural sizes, which
Is that dimension the same as that dimension? On the elevation, the drawn elevation, it looked like they were, but this one doesn't.
No, well, right now the upper is more since you need insulation in the roofing. However, we could do that at the unit itself. So in other words, we could make this a similar width to the edge if that were a directive, and just insulate once the unit starts. You see what I'm saying? So the
Yeah.
glazing could go up higher to mask the appearance of that thickness.
Okay, any other questions from the board? So we'll go into comments.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can we look at the landscape plans
Surely.
and see what changed there?
So the main change, as we mentioned, was in the lower site plan. So those adjustments
Understand what this
were.
Thank you.
I have a little pointer here. These spaces changed a little bit based on the openings, and we did try to create a little sitting area, so that planter on the corner was pulled back, but all the plant material has stayed the same. We still have the 2 trees here that I would like to have matching, and probably the Tristania that we mentioned before. We may or may not match the Tristania here. We may do a cow itch tree or podocarpus or something, a little more skyline in this courtyard. But speaking to the main change is, again, these 3, 4 palms are coming up through the floor. That would either be the Livingstonia or Washington robusta, so we can get that vertical height. So this one would be, I think, a little leaner trunk and more playful. Of course, the Washingtonia, I don't know if I have it here, but you know, the Mexican fan palm. So we're going to look at creating, some nice softness coming up in between from the ground all the way up. The second floor.
Before you go there,
Sure.
I think the main question I have is what changed in this area? Because it looks pretty different. I don't remember this room being here. Maybe that was there before. But it's called a mechanical room here on this plan, but it's called a community lounge on one of the other plans you showed us. So what is
That
going
community
on there?
lounge, I think, went up to the top floor, right?
On the next floor up.
The next floor up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is.
So this is currently the bike storage room. So this is just
grade. So this courtyard, I think, got a little smaller.
So that
on
got
grade.
smaller.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the stair came from here and changed
Pushed
to there.
in this way. So we've still got a tree, we've still got a sitting area, we've still got a green space back in here. But it did get a little smaller, and we do have a much bigger roof deck entertaining area, garden. I'll show you on the next 2 floors up. So this floor changed in that we had deeper planters through this area previously. We had some trees in there. Now we have the palms coming up, taking in the open sky space. All the lower plantings we had previously planned are exactly the same understory. And then these 3 trees back here are giving us the height of a full tree. This is the leptospermum that we had before.
Okay.
Let's go up 1 more level, 2 more levels, I guess, to the top, Courtney, and I'll show you. This roof deck is much bigger, and there we have a planter at the top of that with this tree up in the air. Chondropetalum and grasses at the top of this nice roof deck for viewing. And the palms are coming all the way up to that floor.
That's building mass.
That's deck below. So that's the deck in the new community room off of the new community room at the level below. Got a few views of that if you'd like to see that as well.
Did the enlargement of the deck, the roof deck, also reduce the height of the parapet around that corner? No.
No, it's exactly as it was.
Or
So
the
this is
location of it?
that
did you
L
push
shape
out
right
to
there.
the Building line more?
No, it's the same place. It currently was about this size. We've enlarged it to this size. So this is extra square footage. And so this is essentially looking from here. So you've got the open railing, you've got the big window out, the community room looking at the tree. And this would be now a countertop with a sink and faucet, and the barbecue is going to be placed out here. And so that's the deck below. So you're up here on the deck level looking down at the deck below for the community room. There's a couple of shots of that.
Why does this say stair to roof removed?
Well, so it's just ghosted, so you can see
got it.
the different levels of the bridges and corridors to get there. So there's the deck, square footage. And then that's the community room with the roll-up door. So there's a couple views of that. So that would be a multi-purpose space usable by the tenants.
One floor below.
Yes, third floor.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so we're ready for comments? Yep. Okay, Scott, would you like to start?
Can we go back to a drawing?
Yeah, let's go back to the elevation. So a few pluses and minuses. On the plus side, I really like the palms coming all the way into the earth and coming up. I think that's a nice addition. The second floor, moving that back towards the property line, further away from the view side is really a plus, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of code. I think that's a good addition. Removal of the second garage door, I think, is definitely a plus. I mean, hard to argue with that. Definitely works better. There's a few things that I think aren't quite working yet. And let's start with the east elevation. The previous proposal, there was a lot of liveliness happening here, and there was more composition. This, I think, is less successful. It feels very chopped off. You've got kind of two discrete levels, and the fact that you have to minimize your landscaping for your ventilation is kind of a negative. I know the goal of these projects is always to have natural ventilation and avoid the hassle of the ducts and the stack vent and all of that. But in doing so, you've really kind of damaged this elevation, I think. To my eye, it's a lot less successful than it was previously. And some of it is, I think, the continuity of this, I don't think is helping you. If this were an urban streetscape and this were storefronts and it was lively and a higher plate height, that might make more sense. But it's not, to my eye at least, as successful as it was previously. And I think it needs work. And I know there's issues with the shear wall. I don't know how you're going to solve that, but I don't think it's there yet. And with regard to the front elevation, can we see that little perspective from the street? Yeah, let's see. On the previous elevation, I think the roof was its own element, and it felt like a kind of floating plane above it, and I thought it was successful. I think having the roof is kind of a separate, expressed as a separate element aside from the plaster element, and combining it together and making the plate higher makes this whole elevation feel more top-heavy than the previous one. It felt like it was a natural evolution from heaviest to lightest. And the higher plate and kind of combining with this wall the way you have it, and the thickness, and maybe the other one was unrealistic in terms of what was required for insulation. But there are other ways to treat that edge. I think you alluded to that. It makes it feel, it doesn't have the same lightness and ethereal quality that the last one did. It feels more top-heavy to my eye. And this just feels like there needs to be more interest to this elevation. We've got minimal landscaping. Hopefully, I think there's some trees in there.
No, there's shrubs and vines along that parkside.
Yeah,
Under there, yeah.
it feels really, really lacking, at least compared to the last one. And I don't think making this continuous is doing the project any favors. I rather like the previous expression of this. This feels, it looks more parking garage-ish. Maybe that's just the nature of the beast. But the other one, felt like it was kind of integrated with the units. It didn't feel like a side yard with a parking garage underneath it. I think opening up the stair, I think, is potentially a positive thing. There's the front elevation here. To my eye, this corner was more successful on the previous scheme. And it feels like the wood is, it's kind of not fully coalesced. There was a lot of the wood plank in the previous project, and there was kind of a rationale for it, these kind of bookends, and it kind of made sense. It feels like the wood now, you're kind of wondering why it's there. Is it just a remnant from the previous scheme? And then on this elevation here, I know it's potentially more interesting. You've got more openings into the stair, and you've lightened up the stair tower. But it's lost some of the kind of richness of the multiple materials. And maybe this mesh carries the day once it's fully wrought. But there was kind of a richness to this previous scheme with wood siding. We were told that was either to be planks or it wasn't just lap siding. That added kind of a warmth and a richness to it. But this just feels more pedestrian and more commonplace to my eye. It's a lot of plaster, and it just doesn't have the changed materials and the richness to it that the previous scheme did. And maybe I'm not reading it correctly, but that's my first thought on that. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Pluses and minuses. Thank you.
Scott. Courtney.
I think I'm going to agree with most of Scott's comments. I'm struggling a little bit with that.
Go back.
The commercial corner as well as the east elevation. So same comments regarding this band and how this lower level is treated. I think it's just, as Scott said, it does feel much more like what it is, a parking garage. So it would be nice to see some variation there, or maybe it just needs to be rendered differently on the plan so we can better understand what that's going to look like. This commercial corner, there's something that's feeling a little off about how the glass wraps the corner, and that might just be me, but it feels a little awkward, and I'm not sure that you even need this small strip of planting there if it's intended to be more of an urban condition. Maybe you don't need that there. Maybe it's better served just being hardscape, especially if it's glass above. That might be better. Otherwise, I think the landscape improvements are great. I like the addition of the palms. I think they'll be more successful in the ground rather than in the raised planters. And I am still concerned about that space at the back corner on the ground level. I think that's just, through the life of this thing, it's sort of felt like an afterthought. But, looking at more of the 3D modeling and understanding better how that addresses the upper levels, I think it does help in other ways. So, on the other levels, having a tree there, have something nice and beautiful to look out through and down into, and providing, some visual relief from the community space too, I think is beneficial. Regarding the stair tower, I think it's a necessity, so I don't know how you would get away without it. And I think having a use on the roof is great. If you have to have the stair tower access, it should be usable. So that's a great benefit for the community. And I think that's it.
Okay. Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry, just one more thing. I think I agree also with the comment related to the wood siding material, the horizontal banded material. I think it sort of feels like an afterthought. So, I appreciate how you've kind of interspersed that throughout the building forms, but I think you either need more of it or remove it. I don't know. It just, there's kind of a lot going on material-wise with this project, and the composition of the materials is really important. That's something that we've consistently commented on, and I think it needs a little bit more work.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I apologize for interrupting, but I had a question related to landscaping, and I wonder if it might feed into clarifying a comment about the southwest courtyard. And if I'm reading that correctly, that's right on the property line. Is that true that you're showing the footprint of adjacent buildings next to the tree?
Correct.
If it was considered, should those properties develop 2, 3, 4-story buildings, would the selected landscaping in that courtyard be good choices if let's say those are walls directly 3 and 4 stories tall?
I think there's shade planting in there because it's mostly a north-facing condition where this little sitting area is, so I've thought of that. It's very much like what we have on the north-facing side of the Coda Street landscape area. It's very shaded on the north. It will get some western afternoon sun. This will get some light coming in, even if it is surrounded by the buildings. And it's a very good point. The intent would be that is more of a skyline tree coming up and out of there. And eventually, if it does get built around, it would be above that and getting plenty of light. But the lower area would need to be shade conditioned for sure. And it would be designed as such.
Okay. I'll just remind Kevin that he and I opposed the approval that was given to this last time. So it was a 3-2-1 vote. Amy was not here, or she stepped down? You stepped down previously.
I had to step down previously, so I haven't actually reviewed this
all
at
right.
all.
Oh, not at all. Okay. So good luck with that.
Okay. Can we flip to the elevations, please? I think I am having similar reactions to Scott. I think if we start on the east elevation, I think this corner was more successful when it was its own piece that came to grade, and you didn't have this plinth running all the way along the park. It felt like it was differentiated enough that it was at least heading in the right direction. This just elongates and makes the building feel bigger, and it's not doing you any favors along this part. And then secondly, the proportion of this, to me, I know there were the little eyebrows here, but something else changed here. Either the ceiling height dropped or something happened here where this is definitely different to my mind, or to my eye anyway. And the proportions are not so pleasing right now. It's kind of this big chunk. So it sure seems that this is different than that, but I don't know. Did we lose height here?
No.
Okay.
There's no change to
There's
the
something
floor
going on there.
heights.
Okay.
And those parapets can be dropped. They're in excess of what we would need for roofing now, but we kept them as they were at the 45-foot height level.
Okay.
We can adjust that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think needs some study because it's just a little chunky and up there. And then on the street elevation, to me, there's just a lot going on. I think if we could simplify this, bring it back a little bit, I think it would be really helpful. This little detail, I don't fully understand. It looks like this is sort of projecting outside of this, and I did like the previous version of this, where this was a band that wrapped from here and came around and did its thing. I appreciate you integrating this stair and figuring all that out. I think that'll be an interesting detail and an interesting moment in the building. But I still have issues with this corner, and if you could bring that rendering up. To me, I still don't think this is a particularly strong point of the building. I think the overhang seems excessive here. It's going to be dark and very dark on this side. And I'm not sure about the viability of having seating and out here in lieu of the landscaping that was there. I do appreciate the additional landscaping in that slot between the buildings, and I think that's a great move. But I would recommend some more study on this corner.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Amy?
So like I said, I haven't commented on this project
Yeah.
as of yet.
Yep.
But I think I do agree with a lot of the comments that have been said, especially some of Scott's comments. And I think overall, I do also appreciate the landscape and the openness between the two buildings and the open stair on the front. I think that will be, and moving the taller stair to the back. I think those are all good. And I think that the perspectives in the back are helpful to show like the cross section through the space. I think I've had similar comments to what Kevin was saying about that front corner, and I think that a lot of it might have to do maybe with like materiality or how it's being represented, because it looks like there's definitely a lot of different ideas and different planes, and they seem to be competing with each other. Looking at just like kind of this relationship, like what this material is, and I know they're undetermined as of now, but just trying to understand how it all becomes cohesive and relates to one another, and what this material ends up being, and maybe it's utilized in more than just those areas, or just some way to get it to all really relate to one another. Because in looking at this, it just looks like there's a lot of different materials happening. And then in some way, I was agreeing with just this corner and how you could maybe anchor it a little bit more, because it will be a really important angle as you're coming down that street.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Well, I think this is a really important building myself, and as you know from the vote that happened last time, I felt like it wasn't meeting our highest standard, and I think it really should and really needs to. And one of the reasons I think that it's such an important building is because it is very close to the downtown area, close to EPV, and a heavily used corner. There is a mixture of different building types there, but to me this is like saying, okay, can we do a big modern building that we're really proud of and that fits in the community and is gorgeous? I'd like to see you do something really gorgeous here. And I don't think this is it right here. I think it's not happening yet. And I can, nitpick at parts of it, but I think in general, as Scott said, that, making this one big plinth is it's adding to that kind of monolithic feel of this side, which we were really trying to get away from. We struggled with it. And although you made this nice change to differentiate this front unit with the way the roof happens, but then you tied it back together with this plinth. So it seems to me that this could be something somewhat unique from the rest of the building, more so than it is. And I don't know why it has to march along like this in the same way that everything else does. So I think the change that occurs at that front should be more distinct with the heights and maybe treatments. Maybe it should be more simplified than this is. Maybe it should have more plaster and less open rail. There's a number of different ways to do it, but it seems to me that's an important element that's still not there yet. And it also feels like, because of the way the balconies got pushed out, the planting that got eliminated on this side, what happened with the parking garage and all that it's even now pushing more, getting less detail on this side and pushing harder towards that property line. And I think that's unfortunate too. So other than that, I'd just be repeating other comments that you've already heard. I do think also that that rear elevation, well, I don't think, I know that it got more massive, obviously, with the stair tower extension. And yes, there could be another 4-story building there, I suppose. We don't know. It could be, a 1-story building. So I think it needs a bit more study and work to break it up closer to what it was before, or more than it was before. But I do think to go back to kind of reiterate what I said, that if this front part turns into something really beautiful, that that the portion towards the back can be less, can afford to be less attractive. But I think this really has to shine, and I know this is something you guys can do. So who would like to make a motion?
Can we get a 2-week continuance? Come back, please.
Sure.
Is that available? Okay. Okay. I'll take a stab at it.
All right.
A motion for a 2-week continuance with the following comments. The board appreciates the removal of the second garage door facing the park. The board appreciates the landscaping going all the way to grade and the addition of palm trees at the interior setback. To my eye, I think the staircase is in the right location despite the height of it. Now, I don't know how others feel.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, so the board likes the new location of the second floor staircase. And I'll say that the board thinks that the more open staircase has potential. We're awaiting further design refinements. The staircase at the front, that is. Yeah, the front staircase.
Has more
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah. So the board is not satisfied with the north elevation. I think you expressed it well, Kirk, that it needs to, well, I can't say it needs to be more beautiful, but I think that, well, I'll get into some particulars. The board would like to see, I'm going to jump around a bit, the east elevation. The board would like to see the continuous, I'll call it bulkhead for lack of a better word, the continuous bulkhead broken and articulated and brought to grade, particularly at the junction of the 5th unit towards Coda Street. Do I have it correct? You raised the plate height of the studio at the front unit, 4th floor?
The 1-bedroom, correct.
Yeah. For me, I would say I would reconsider the 10-foot plate height there. I know that there was a lot of struggle with that unit and making it lighter, and at one point that 4th floor unit was contentious whether it should even be there. So I think raising the plate height of that unit is the wrong direction. I would lower it.
Which unit?
Okay, the 4th story unit on Coda
Thanks.
Street.
1-bedroom unit.
Yeah, it's a
North
1-bedroom, pardon me.
elevation.
Yeah. I think raising the plate height to 10 feet is the wrong direction. Should be back where it was at the original approval. I don't know how others feel. I think there's some loss of interest and detail getting rid of the eyebrows on the east elevation. I know that they don't make sense, but maybe they have some penetrations and some lightness to them. To me, it is a less interesting project. I don't know. Do others agree with that?
Yes.
If your head's nodding. Okay. Study adding the architectural eyebrow element back, punching holes in it if need be. I guess this would be a general comment. Simplify the north elevation use of forms and materials to be more cohesive. And yeah, the study the parapet height of the fourth floor units on the east elevation.
Study reducing.
Study reducing, sure. This is a tricky one to craft a motion for.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that, and others can chime in. I think there's some comments about the wood. I'm not sure if there was a consensus on that.
I think there was the.
Either more or less?
Well, it seemed like, yeah, it was more of like an overarching comment of just material cohesion and simplifying. So whether they use more or less, it's more a matter of how they address all the materials, I guess. That's in my opinion.
Well, it was my view that the way they were using the horizontal siding material to, associated with particular masses of the building did help to break up the mass, bulk, and scale, the apparent mass of the building. So I think that
more so on the west elevation, huh?
On the well, and on the north, they had with the Serre Tower the way it wrapped. So I think I thought that was a successful element of the previous design that is now has been eliminated. So I would propose adding that comment, that study reintroducing the horizontal siding element associated with defined masses of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Board members, we had some board members felt that the elimination of that planting for seating on the east side was detrimental.
Was your comment, Courtney, that it was too narrow, the little strip between the tables and the building?
He was relaying Kevin's comment.
I think that was at the front. You were saying that the front along Coda potentially might not need it in an urban
I would
kind of
just
look at the glass interface of the ground.
suggest more study of that corner and how the commercial seating applies to a vehicular alleyway, and how does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me it seemed like that seating was getting crunched in there, and again, not maybe it'd be a nice amenity for if there was a coffee shop or something there, but it's losing a potential landscape area, a bit of a buffer to the building. So, I know Kevin. I thought that was what Kevin expressed as well. So we had at least two board members who felt that way.
I agree with that. I mean, you're serving a table, you're in the alley at that point.
Right.
So what's that comment then?
Study reintroducing a landscape area at the northeast corner.
I disagree with that.
I guess it would
We have
be
at least three who are in agreement.
I'm just stating my opinion for the record.
It would be easier to see it if it was marked, or if the driveway was marked on the site plan. Then you could see the
reality
relationship.
is if they're
between the-
seating there, there's going to be a separation between the seating and the adjacent drive aisle. So we'll be looking at potentially planters or a guardrail of some sort.
No, there's about 6 inches between the edge of the table and the drive aisle.
Right. So my point was, I don't think this is doing anything. If you really want seating here, if you think that will functionally work that way, then address a better design for the whole area.
I see it as like all or none, either all paving or all landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, or who would like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
See you in 2 weeks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm missing a few staples here. No staples. Missing staples.
We're on to item 2. 1200 block, 500. This is a proposal to replace the 500 Street Bridge over Sycamore Creek. It's last reviewed June 8th. You've seen this 2 or 3 times now. Read our comments from last time. This was June 8th. Yeah. The board appreciates the applicant's thought and effort put into the design. Number 2, for the concrete bridge and guardrail, the board prefers some version of the alternate options 1 or 2, as noted on plan sheet A9. Number 3, the board prefers a slightly simpler design of the wrought iron fencing and the use of this fencing wherever possible, rather than a wood or solid fence. Number 4, add plantings to the northeast bank and the northeast side of the access road. Number 5, apply striping to both crosswalks as a traffic calming measure. 6-0 vote. Welcome back. Apologies.
Thank you. My name is Tom Conti, Bengal Engineering. I'm the project engineer.
My name is Jim Colton. I'm a project manager with the City of Santa Barbara.
I'm David Black, landscape architect.
Well, I think I'm going to address the questions first, and I'm going to jump right to the rendering. I just rolled this up about an hour ago, if you can believe it. So on this, the second comment here regarding the barrier rail, so we elected to stay with option 1 for a handful of reasons. If you remember, option 2 had bolsters above that top handrail, and or barrier rail that on there, and it was kind of breaking up the curve, and we thought that it was more appropriate to kind of accentuate the curve of the road. So the next rendering actually has an up close view of the barrier rail. I think it also kind of ties a pedestrian into the curve too. I think the vehicles understand it's on a slight curve, and I think the continuance of the railing really makes the roadway accentuate that gradual curve. Hopping on to this third comment here. Let's see. I guess we can flip to page 7. Sorry. Wasn't page 7. Here we go. Page 9. So what we did here is we eliminated all the wood fencing that was in front of the southwesterly side of 500. We simplified the wrought iron a little bit by removing the finial. So it's a flat black fence that's very simple in nature, and it's placed throughout the roadway corridor on the road right of way. So I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to add, David.
No.
Okay, skipping to the landscape plan, addressing comment 4. So we added a bunch of planting on this easterly north slope here, including 3 coastal oaks, 1 sycamore, a bunch of lemon berries, and a bunch of other plants on this side of the hill, per the comment. So that's addressing the comments. That's really all I have to address the comments from previous, but I'm here for addressing any comments that the board has on the project.
Okay. Does that complete your presentation?
Sure.
Okay, we'll open up to public comment. Anyone here would like to comment on this project? Seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board. Amy, do you have any questions?
My only question was, do you have the previous, I guess, elevation that we had commented on before?
I do not, actually.
Do we have the, excuse me, do we have the
Previous drawings?
Previous barrier rail?
just to compare? Otherwise, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Kevin?
No questions.
Courtney?
Did we just not have a landscape plan previously?
We did.
We did.
We did. So what changed again? You just added some additional trees? Because I don't see any comments specific to that, so I'm just...
Well, this has been reviewed by Public Works and in particular Creeks Division. So they made some comments along the way in the last year relative to density and species type. So we have made some modifications in that regard.
Okay.
So that's reflected in this plan.
Any trees to be removed as part of this?
Yes, there is. There's a few.
And did that change from the last
No, it did
review?
not.
Okay. Can you just refresh my memory?
Sure. Actually, there is one tree that we're keeping compared to, it shows we're actually removing, but we're going to be keeping this sycamore tree. So that's omitted. We're removing 3 willows that are currently on top of the existing wing wall to the bridge that are right on top here. So here's some pictures. You can see adjacent. It's right on top of the wing wall.
Mm-hmm.
We're removing all of these palm trees underneath this oak to try and have the oak survive a little bit more. There's palm trees literally growing through the canopy of this oak. So we're kind of isolating this oak to grow and mature to be a really nice tree on this corner.
And these are additional palms that are being removed?
That's correct. There's, one there, and I think that's the other one that's not marked, unfortunately. And then we're removing this hedge here and replacing it with we're not replacing it with planting, we're just running the wrought iron fence around this corner to keep it kind of open for a couple reasons.
And will that be right behind the sidewalk?
Yes. And then there's 2 trees on the westerly side that are right on the existing abutment that are just need to be removed, unfortunately, because of the deep excavation right there. One of them is this Norfolk pine, and then the other one is this palm tree.
The pine, there's no way that this can be saved?
It's actually wider than the sidewalk right now. We're going to be undermining it with the deep excavation, removing all of the bridge. It's literally a few feet off of the back of the abutment, so it's going to be cut 2 ways. So it's going to be unstable after the city arborist has reviewed it and understands the situation.
Can't be moved.
No.
It's huge.
I can see that.
Wow, okay. And creeks will allow 15 gallon? I've seen them requiring 1 gallons for most of the trees lately.
This material is always contract grown in advance. What we find is, when they start the trees, particularly the oaks and the sycamores, they can get them up to 15-gallon size by the time the construction starts. So that's why it's done that way.
And how many new trees are you proposing?
I think there's 13 or 14.
Yes.
Or actually, no, I think there's more.
Of those, how many skyline trees do you have, would you say?
Well, that would just be, I guess, technically the sycamores.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's the symbol.
Yeah.
Correct.
So 1, 2, 3?
Mm-hmm.
This is the big oak?
It is.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was there formerly a bike path built into the bridge design?
There was not a bike path on the existing roadway. We are widening the road to accommodate bikes better through this bridge.
Okay, but there's not a class 1?
No.
Okay, that's it.
All right, so comments from the board. Amy, any comments?
I think it's acceptable as proposed.
Okay. Kevin?
I think it's acceptable as proposed.
Courtney?
I am disappointed to see this very large Norfolk Island pine coming out, but understand that it can't remain where it's at. So I think my only comment would be to look at incorporating potentially some additional skyline trees into the project to accommodate that loss. So right now you have 3, maybe 1 or 2 more, if it makes sense, if you have the space.
That's the problem, is the space.
Yeah, but with the restorations, typically, you might lose some material, so keep that in mind too.
Sure.
Just unfortunate to lose something of that size. So that's all. Otherwise, I think it looks good.
Is the guardrail finish, is that just straight concrete?
Yeah, that's correct. The barrier rail. Yeah,
Barrier rail.
that's going to be nice, smooth concrete.
Okay. Scott, questions?
Or comments, right?
Comments, yeah.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's an attractive, even elegant design. I wonder about kind of the ends of these gates right on the edge of the sidewalk. If that's a hazard, it's like turn to the side a little bit, or how do you end those? Rather, the fences, rather.
Let's flip over to the landscape plan here. I think it gives you a better idea how the fencing ends. It's actually going to end at this driveway here, so it's kind of terminating there.
Oh, and here it's separated from the sidewalk, it looks like. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, it is set back a little bit.
Okay.
Because here's the actual backup block right there.
But these guys are right on the back of the sidewalk?
That's correct. We're close to it.
Okay. That seems fine. Nice.
Okay. So, Courtney, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. Motion for project design and final approval. Do we have details for the walls? We've already looked at those.
The retaining walls or the
I'm sorry, the rail. We looked at all of that the last time.
The barrier rail.
Yeah.
Yes.
So motion for project design and final approval. Applicant to study the inclusion of additional skyline trees in the landscape design.
Okay.
And the board appreciates the design of the guardrails and fencing.
Okay, we need a seconder.
I'll second.
Amy, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, we're nearly back on schedule. Thanks for helping us with that.
Do you guys want these, or? I only keep one.
Item number 3, 1330 Seek Street. Project was last reviewed April 25th. Hello.
You just have 10 minutes for your presentation?
No problem. Proposed project involves interior and exterior alterations to convert an existing commercial complex to a mixed-use project. Proposal includes an interior remodel and alterations to the rear portion of the building, including converting 1,240 square feet commercial space on the second floor to 2 residential units, a 1-bedroom and a studio unit, and exterior alterations, including window and door changes and new Juliet balconies. I'm not going to read the rest of this. It's, I'll let you do that as we go through the presentation. And action may be taken if sufficient information is provided, and I will read comments from last time. It was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officers. Have you been there now?
Been there, yes.
Okay. And comments were, number 1, the board finds the proposed rear and interior modifications aesthetically appropriate and do not pose negative visual impacts to the neighborhood or consistency issues with the ABR guidelines. Number 2, restudy the Juliet balcony configurations and details at the front west elevation. Number 3, study the entry tower proportions. Number 4, restudy the configuration of the roof decks. Number 5, show the roof deck divider walls on the exterior elevations. And it was a 7-0 vote.
Excellent. I'm Daryl Becker with Becker Studios.
I'm Bridget Walker with Arcadia Studio.
So our project is 1330 Cassique on the east side, over near Salinas.
Kevin, were you here when this was last reviewed?
We'll go straight to the elevations if you like.
Do board members need to see the photos from of the project to re-familiarize themselves?
So I'm going to drop back to a couple of the areas. On the front of the building, there was a repetition of Juliet balconies we did away with entirely based on the board's input, and we kept them in the rear. And I'll show that in elevation in a moment. In the back, we have private deck area off of each one of the residential units, meeting the open space requirement for each one of the units. There was a setback requirement of 10 feet on this side, which is why this was pulled over in the first review. But we reconfigured that with staff's input and accommodated the open space for each one of those units. So this is the study of the front elevation of the building where the previous Juliet balconies were removed. At the back of the building, we still have these 3 on the second floor. And let's see, the elevation of the site walls of the private patios is up here.
Okay.
So I doubt that you'll ever see them from any vantage, but they're there. The only other comment was the studying the front entry element, which we simplified and balanced out a little better with the removal of this. It's just less busy. We feel it's appropriate now. So those were the major comments for the project.
Okay. The landscaping to be presented? Oh, and the details added?
Yes.
Okay. You're here for final, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you replacing windows?
We're replacing windows with wood-clad windows and steel windows. There's a mix of the two.
Okay.
So for the landscape plan, along the front, there's an existing wisteria vine that we're keeping, adding Rhaphiopus shrubs, agaves, senecio as ground cover. And then along the sides, Graptivaria and Senecio, just low-lying ground covers. It's a really small, like 18-inch planter. In the back is a little seating area, decomposed granite seating area with the new olive, or fruitless olive, and then the same plant palette with the agave mateos and Rhaphiopus. And that is the landscaping.
Okay, thank you. So we'll open public comment. Seeing no one, we'll go to questions. Amy, any questions?
No questions.
Kevin?
Did the size of on the front elevation, are those windows sizes existing? Or are you enlarging them?
They do change. Here, reference the existing photos. They're somewhat concealed at the front because of this trellis element, but they do change, and we have new windows. So this is, you can see they're small, but they're tucked under this trellis. And they're really This isn't a very attractive facade.
Sure.
We're trying to connect it to the street a little better and make it
But
a little brighter.
they're upsizing pretty dramatically.
Oh, yes.
They're much
Absolutely.
larger. Okay. That's my question.
Okay. Courtney, any questions?
I'm remembering a tree that's being removed.
Correct.
Is that's still being removed? And it's right about where the olive is
There's
proposed?
there's a magnolia and a palm that are together, and they're in the accessible ramp.
Right.
And then we propose the replacement of the olive in lieu of.
Okay. And what's happening on the north property line adjacent to the drive? Is there a planter there? Or is it a wall fence?
There is not. There's a wall on the property line, and there's a fence on that with it's fully covered with
Bougainvillea right now.
bougainvillea.
Yeah.
It's a pretty mature, very thick privacy screen, if you will.
But up the front, in front of the gate,
Correct.
it looks like there's no bougainvillea there. Actually, it looks like it's covered in chain link with fabric. Is that temporary here?
Correct. We put this up here during the last year for privacy. That's to be removed under our plan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a note on our plan to remove that. But, this chain link sits on the neighbor's property here.
And there's no strip between.
There's no planting.
Okay.
There's no planting strip or place for us to plant.
Okay.
We do have a call out for, a clearance here. That there's a strip between here and here that was previously covered with bougainvillea, and the neighbor took all of that out recently, so it's a bit unfortunate. If you can see that in the site plan.
Okay. That's all. We're in questions, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott, questions?
Yeah, can you walk us through the window details and the parapet details facing the street?
Sure.
Is this the 16th Street?
I saw some in there somewhere.
They're buried here in the 88.
Is there an index?
A6.
So it's recessed, the wood window, and then the parapet?
The parapet detail. I'm not sure I have that on here. It's an existing parapet. We're not adding it.
Oh, it's just staying as is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing we are articulating it is an existing plaster pole around, some indicative of very 1980s detail.
But you're getting rid of that.
We're getting rid of that.
This is the right move.
So, but we're not adding a new parapet
Okay.
anywhere.
Okay, and can you show us where your backflow preventer is?
Correct.
And the fire and irrigation, and then any electrical or gas meters and things?
It's going to be back here, but the backflow preventers here. We reviewed it with transportation. Maybe it's off to the maybe on your landscape.
Yeah,
plan.
from the irrigation plan. Sorry. So it's up here and we're just replacing it.
Okay.
And we went over that with transportation already and got their approval.
And gas and electrical meters are located where?
Electrical meters in the electrical room over here.
Okay.
And gas meter is in the street up front.
Do you have individual gas meters for each unit?
No. It's a common meter for the building. Electrical meter and panel into the electrical bulb.
It's not on the front elevation, is it?
No, their water meter and the gas meter was. I'm not seeing it shown, but I know it's in the sidewalk out here.
The gas meters in the sidewalk?
Yes.
Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
I
common.
haven't seen that. Should have seen it by now, but I haven't. Okay.
I just have one question that currently the band at the parapet is painted a different color. You're just going to paint
We're
it all?
painting that out one color.
Okay. All right. So who would, comments? Right? That was questions. And we're into comments?
Sure, I'll start. I like the front elevation a lot better now. It's clean and simple and well proportioned, and good job there. I think the building colors look fine. In favor of granting final approval today.
Okay. Any different comments?
No.
Kevin's turning on his mic.
I do. To my eye, the front elevation, the windows are almost too large. I know it's hard to believe it, but as far as like a composition between wall and opening, the windows seem to go sort of beyond.
I think Kevin's in the minority on that.
Yeah.
So.
But if I'm...
Yeah. So someone like to make a motion? I'll make a motion for final approval as submitted.
It's PDA and final approval.
Yes, yep.
And then, do we need the sequel?
Okay.
It's the bottom one.
The Architectural Board of Review finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines, Section 15183, based on the city staff analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project. So we need a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Amy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
We can start next time.
Yeah.
Thank you, and then can you give this to Carol? Thanks.
Okay, yes it is. Item 4, 1028 Olive Street. I know you're shocked. We're ahead of schedule.
I know. I thought you had to wait for somebody to show up or something.
We can take an item 15 minutes before it's scheduled time. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
This is I'm going to read a little bit here and then let you take over. A continued item was last reviewed April 25th. It's and there's a revised project description, apparently. Proposal to demolish an existing 409 square foot detached two-car garage and construct a one-story, 750 square foot dwelling unit and 540 square foot three-car carport. Carport will connect an existing 1,574 square foot dwelling unit at the front of the parcel to the new one at the rear, resulting in a duplex. Total of 3 on-site parking spaces will be provided. There was a staff hearing officer review requested for a zoning modification to provide 3 instead of the required 4 parking spaces. Now, have you done that already?
Yes.
Okay.
We got
you
our
are granted.
approval. Mhm.
Great. Okay, I think that, let's see what our comments were last time. Oh, boy, we had a lot. But I'm going to let Scott review.
Oh, you are, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Previous comments. Number 1, study adding landscape at the southeast corner facing the carport. Do you want to address these one by one? Or because there's a lot of comments.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think,
Yeah, I think
Tony?
we addressed all of them.
Okay, all right.
Let's look at one by one.
Yeah.
That's on the site plan. Over here, so we introduced a little landscaping over here to kind of soften that up. You can see it in this elevation here, or this view. It's actually also on the elevations proper. So,
Tony, did you say your name?
oh, I'm sorry. My name is Tony Zcase. I'm the designer on the project, and to my left is
Adelaide Ortega.
Ortega, the owner.
Welcome.
Sorry. So that was that one. And
Okay,
what's the next
move
one?
on. Study adding some glass at the secondary door facing the carport and/or adding an architectural enhancement, such as an eyebrow roof element.
So what happened, we kind of redesigned the interior, and there was this door that was kind of out of the shadow of the roof. So that was why we needed some kind of architectural element over that door. When we redesigned the interior, we slid that door back into underneath the carport roof. So that kind of
Negated that comment.
right.
Okay.
And you can see that again on the elevations. It actually looks nice.
Okay.
You know?
Number 3, study raising the plate height at the rear unit.
Yeah, so that's something we don't hear every day, right? So I did do that. We got to a 9-foot plate. It gives I think it gives it a little more mass here, and it tends to tie these two elements together. So we did that.
Okay. Number 4, add a powder room window on the west elevation that is shown on the floor plans, and resolve other inconsistencies between the floor plan and the elevations.
Right. So when we redesigned the interior, I don't know if you guys remember this, but this kitchen was back here. This powder room was out here, and there was a window. This window in the powder room, but it's oriented long ways, and this window was left off the elevation, so that basically just kind of freshened everything up. And I think overall it flows better. I kind of softened this hard corner here, and I think it becomes a little more neighborly by having the kitchen out here where she can kind of see anything that's going on out there. We had the kitchen kind of tucked back here before. The bedroom stayed in the same place, and we still have this little. So now the dining area is over here. It was over here. So.
Okay, great. 5, return the parapet by 1 foot on each side of the east elevation.
Yeah, so we did do that as well. This little step back here. We had this opening. We actually left the parapet off that rear elevation to drain water a little easier because on site there's a bunch of bamboo back there, and it just showers debris onto the roof there. So we thought it would be better for drainage just to leave the parapet completely off and just have a drain there. But we have no problem, turning that back in about a foot or so, you said? Yeah.
Okay.
So we did that.
Would you have a gutter and a downspout there?
Yeah, we're going to have, we'll have a downspout somewhere here.
Okay.
One corner, right here.
Okay, number 6, the board has reviewed the proposed project and compatibility analysis. It meets the following requirements.
I don't think we need to read that.
No. So fewer comments than we thought.
Yeah. Good.
So I think we hit all the points.
Yeah, looks like it.
The colors, I have to apologize for the colors because we're just trying to match the existing, and it's a little. I don't think the computer is true to the real shade, but I think we have some photos back here that kind of. These are the colors that we're trying to mimic. It's a little more turquoise blue. So we want to kind of tie it all in together, so it looks like it was all built around 1940.
Do you have light fixtures picked out?
We didn't get to that part yet. I was going to make sure we got some kind of approval tonight to go ahead and finish our construction documents.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board? We'll open public comment. Seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board. Amy.
Where's the blue on that front elevation, I guess?
On the existing? I think it shows up better on the photos on the last sheet. There's a bunch of photos that...
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little band. Here it is, too.
I think the blue looks nice. Nobody seems to like it, though. They always bring it to my attention.
It's unusual.
Why did you do that, Bob? I don't know. I like blue.
She says her dad painted it back in
Yeah.
whenever he was around.
It's more subdued in the photos than it is on the drawings.
Yeah, it was kind of... But yeah, we'd like to keep the... I think the color scheme works on site.
Windows will be what kind?
They're going to match. They're all wood windows. Yeah, so I want it to really look like, it was built on the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Kevin, questions? Unless you had other questions, Amy.
Nope.
No questions. All right. Courtney.
Is there a landscape plan?
No, but we actually have quite a bit of landscaping already in place. We've been asked to remove, there's a bunch of paving here. At the mod hearing, Susan Reardon said that she's not going to force us to take out the paving, but she does want some kind of a physical block to prevent cars from parking there. So, we're gonna, we'd use drought tolerant, whatever we use, but now we're thinking we could leave it as this paving stuff that's out front there.
I just wanted something simple because, we do have the olive trees that drop everything. And like right now, for myself, it's easier to keep clean if, so we thought we'd put like maybe little patio chairs or something.
Yeah, if you want to put some patio chairs or something, use it as a little outdoor living space.
Because we do spend a lot of time out in front of our yard. But if you want landscaping,
Yeah, and there's some this is existing landscaping all along here and here. So we were going to introduce something new there. So we're kind of, on the fence about that.
Yeah, I mean, it appears also that you're indicating that these are used for open space, but they're shown as landscaping, so I think I would just need some clarification on that when you come back.
Okay.
And any,
So
clarification on what's existing versus new. If you're proposing new landscaping, we need to see what that is and how it's irrigated.
Yeah, I thought she wanted us to remove the paving, so we kind of showed it as being removed, but now she's okay with it as is.
Okay, but that's not indicated on your plan?
No, we didn't get to that point.
You've also got open space in the back, too, that this needs to be defined. What's happening in this space, what's happening around the back, what's happening back here, kind of stuff.
Okay.
Those are all existing lands. Well,
it's not indicated on the plan.
Okay.
There's what's back there? Just a bunch of weeds and stuff. I think it doesn't look
in my yard.
I mean, it's not like fully
it's
landscaped
like those
or
pretty
anything.
yellow little flowers back there, and then I have
kinda
a
natural
big
stuff.
poinsettia. That's absolutely gorgeous. It's a poinsettia tree, and every year it just gives the most beautiful flowers.
Nice.
Great.
We could specify those or call them out, or
I think I'm more interested to see in the areas that are being revised what's going on there.
Okay.
So if you're planning on keeping hardscape here, we want to see what that, see that indicated on the plan that's gaining
we should
approval.
remove that. It's kind of misleading.
And in areas where you've got new landscape proposed, calling out what is that.
All right.
I'm just going to read the conditions of the approval, staff hearing, staff hearing officer approval. Number 1, in order to meet the parking demand on site, the new unit shall have no more than 750 square feet of floor area and shall contain no more than 1 bedroom. The new paved area accessible to vehicles within the required interior setback between the new rear unit and interior property line shall not be used for parking and shall be reduced to the minimum size necessary to provide adequate maneuverability for vehicles exiting the site.
She wanted to minimize this hammerhead turnaround here.
Yeah. So it looks like you could probably lose a few feet there. Yep. C, if any of the existing paving within the front yard is proposed to remain, with the exception of the driveway to the proposed carport, a physical barrier shall be placed between the driveway and the paved area to prevent parking of vehicles within the front yard. There you have it.
And all those are on the cover sheet.
They are?
Of the plan,
Oh, it's
yeah.
part of, okay. All right, so Scott, we never got to you, did we?
No questions.
No questions. So comments? Amy, any comments?
I like the new floor plan for the unit in the back. I think
Yeah.
that it works.
Like it better?
Yeah, I think it's successful, and especially in just the arrangement of public space and, the kitchen and the dining in the front. And I think that has a nice path and entrance, so it can be kind of its own structure, but it's tied well to the front house.
Thank you.
So I think that's successful, and I think depending on what you do in the front, it would just be interesting to see how you do create a barrier if you keep the paving, if you add a wall or
Out here?
yeah. If you're able to put planting, I think you could probably do some sort of low planting and still have area for like a patio.
Right.
And incorporate both of those ideas. I think
good
that
idea.
would be successful.
Okay.
But overall, I like the changes that you did.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Kevin?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good as presented. I do wonder about defining the rear unit's outdoor space. If there's a fence or some separation between the driveway and that area, what that's going to be, and it might be nice to have a little bit more privacy back there. So if there's something to give you a little visual privacy, that might be nice.
Okay. Maybe a little head screen or something on there.
Courtney?
I'd like to see more information on the landscaping and hardscape materials, so what's new versus existing. And I agree with Kevin's comment related to the rear unit's private space and better defining that. I didn't get a chance to ask this question, but it looks like there's a small space between the driveway and your property line.
Yes.
Do you know about how big that is? It looks like maybe a foot.
Yeah, about a foot.
So I think I would like to see some planting there. Because assuming there's a fence along the property line, that would be...
No, the neighbor has this kind of a tall hedge all along there. And that's works well as a screen also.
But is there a fence in front of that
I'm
hedge?
not sure we have enough room to actually plant anything under there. It's pretty thick.
Is there a fence in front of that hedge?
There's a fence inside the hedge.
Inside it, so
it's kinda,
okay. We'll take a look at that,
Yeah, it
and
might
what
be shown
we're
on the
trying to avoid
photos.
is a wall or fence right up against the driveway.
Yeah. Well, I think there's really, it's pretty thick there. Is that it? No. I'll take a look at that.
I would
See if
just,
we can do anything there.
yeah, take a look at that area, and then when you come back, just bring a landscape plan and indicate
Okay.
how you plan to irrigate.
Right, okay.
Okay. Scott?
Okay, I agree with Kevin and Courtney's comments about more information on the landscape, and I like the idea of some sort of separation. A little low fence or something, to give some sense of privacy.
Well, yeah,
for the
okay.
caves, so it might be nice to have. Otherwise, I think it's really nice and does fit in very well with the existing house.
Thank you.
Attractive.
I don't have any different comments, so who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. The board appreciates the project and how well it fits in with the existing structure. The board would like to see some form of separation between the private outdoor yard of the new unit and the main lot. It might be as simple as a small garden fence. The board would like to see more information on landscaping in the new areas that are disturbed and will require new landscaping.
Okay.
About that, the hedge, if you plant something in there, right now a lot of the hedge, the old stuff falls. So you'd be doing a lot of cleaning in there between the flower beds. If you got flowers in there, there's about that much space. I don't even think it's that much space between the hedge. So even if you did put flowers in there, I don't know how that would work with the hedge there.
I guess I'm not understanding where the hedge is.
I think they're talking about the property line.
Oh, the property.
So, again, what I'm trying to avoid is a fence or wall right up against the driveway. If there's no fence, if it's a hedge, then you probably don't need to do anything.
Oh, there is no fence in there?
It's just the hedge.
I think we just need more information on what that looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I thought there was a fence. Is that?
No.
It's just a wood fence
It
now.
says
It's not
existing
there.
hedge there.
Okay.
We pass this a motion for design approval.
PDA. And coming back to the full board, or could it go to consent?
I think it's going to go definitely to consent.
Indefinite continuance to consent.
That
Someone like to
means we're
second?
done?
Just about. Almost.
You're done. I'm not.
You're headed for the finish line now.
It's going to be so pretty once it
Yeah.
gets done really nice.
I think we've come up with a really nice product here.
Yes.
Overall.
Yeah. Well, we agree. So we just need a seconder for that motion.
I'll second.
Seconded
So,
by Amy. All in.
Scott,
Yes.
I put the sheet of paper there. It's the 15183.
Okay.
It might be in front of Kirk.
Okay. I love reading these. The Architectural Board of Review finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines section 15183 based on the city staff analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Dog is so well behaved.
Yes, she is.
So we will take a break now for about 20 minutes. Right.
Cyrus Chestnut.
And now, another Billy Strayhorn composition, Paul Gonsalves and Chelsea Bridge. Paul Gonsalves.
Yep. Oh, okay. So we'll reconvene the meeting for Monday, September 26th, and we're on item number 5, 116 Anacapa Street. This is a new item, proposal for a change of use and exterior alterations to an existing 5,733 square foot non-residential building. Project will include converting 2,500 square feet of floor area back to a permitted parking garage, replacing the existing garage doors with glass roll-up doors, new brick veneer on portions of the exterior facade, new paint color, and parking lot restripe to add an ADA-compliant space and path of travel. Project will also include new landscaping pockets, lighting fixtures, bicycle parking, awnings, and a new roof membrane. Project requires coastal review.
Good evening, Joe Androlitis with Androlitis Mixon Architects.
Welcome.
Take you to the site plan and kind of just walk you through. This is an old warehouse building that was, I think it was built in the late 60s. It used to be a feed store just a few months ago. The owner bought it and since wants to remodel it and update it and make it into like a beach rental area for stand-up boards, surfboards, bikes, whatnot, ocean-related rental equipment. I'll have showers and locker rooms for people to share and change into rent wetsuits if possible, whatnot. Is a picture of the existing building. It's pretty run down. It hasn't really changed since its original design. Found out that the original plans had a parking lot on this side, and as you know, parking is a premium in the funk zone. So since it was never permitted as a feed store, we're able to kind of keep this existing use, but upgrade it. Initially, there was 3 spaces in there. We've widened it to 4, so I can get narrower spaces. The 8 spaces out here are original, but we've converted 2 of them into a handicap spot. And then since we have extra width, I've brought the spaces in to allow planting on the perimeters. This is an existing planting strip between the parking and between the back of sidewalk and a little site wall that exists today. And then there's existing planting out in the public right-of-way. We do have the opportunity to provide little pocket planters along the building at the projected areas of the CMU wall. So the building's basically just CMU block around the entire perimeter. I didn't even bother showing these 3 sides because we're not doing any to them, and they're just blank CMU walls. I think some of the photos show the existing condition, but I didn't show any elevations of those sides. The front has basically 12-inch block that projects out 4 inches past the 8-inch block elements that contain the existing old roll-up doors. So we're proposing that we eliminate and remove all the existing fenestration at the front and install new aluminum glass roll-up doors at these 2 sides and these 2 sides, and install a storefront system with 2 doors in the center where the signage would be located. This is an updated elevation. This is the existing stacked bond CMU that we see there right now. This is also, I think this is a running bond actually in between. But we're proposing putting a really thin Roman brick, much like you'd see in the 60s, applied to that little recessed area. And then we'd like to add an awning for sun protection. And the awnings is basically a steel wide channel all the way across with a corrugated kind of roof element in between. And here's a little section in detail of that. The colors we're proposing are, we'd like to keep a kind of a dark scheme for the rolling doors and the awning and the brick veneer. And then these projecting elements, we'd keep a lighter color, and we'd like to grow some creeping vine that would come up in that area to make it a little more soft. And then install just a little contemporary light fixture at those little projecting barriers. Existing roof framing will remain. It's not totally decided whether we're going to replace the roof. I just put that in for now, but if we did, it'd just be a standard white PVC roof. Pretty much that's all you can do these days. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I don't know if I've missed anything, but I called out some landscaping elements on the landscape plan. And here's the updated color board. Do have some additional cut sheets of the brick and a paint chip if you wanted to see that, since it's hard when you reproduce it, it really doesn't do it justice. And that's it. I do have door and window detail or door details. There's no windows here on the floor plan sheet. So we just have basic storefront that's just going to get applied to the existing CMU wall, and then it's a roll-up door behind the wall for the other elements. So I was hoping to maybe get final and comments at consent, but
Are you proposing some variety within the brick?
yeah.
Okay.
I would need to get actual samples and kind of look at how they feel, but I was thinking that's kind of like the color palette you get from this company. So.
Does that conclude the presentation?
Yes.
Open public comment, and seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board. Since you started already, Scott, you go right ahead.
Okay. So are you painting one of those colors, or that the flash comes different?
It comes in different colors. It's a mixture. It's like it's actually a similar brick that Frank Lloyd Wright used in a lot of his houses back in the
And
day.
it's just a veneer applied to the CMU?
Yeah.
And then how much reveal do you have between that and the...
4 inches, and this
4 inches.
stuff's 3/4 of an inch, 5/8 or 3/4. So it'd still have a pretty decent reveal.
And the building's currently painted now, is that right?
Yes, it's just all painted CMU block.
Okay, so you're just proposing a different color paint for the CMU. Got it. Is there a little sketching detail where the tiebacks come back from the awning?
I don't know if that detail covered it. I think it was just
a little turnbuckle?
Yeah, a little turnbuckle. I can come back and get that.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Courtney, questions?
Did you say you had landscape?
I called out some landscape planning myself since it was pretty minimal. A lot of this planning is to remain. You could see it in the photos. And then I believe what we're calling out on the sides. Some blue flax lily on the sides here, and then the creeping vine at the finger pointers in the front. So.
We can come back to you if you want to look at it some more.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. That's all.
Okay. Kevin?
No comments or no questions.
Okay. Amy, questions?
I don't have
No?
any questions.
Do you have any comments?
I think, overall, I like it. The one thing that I'm wondering about is just the brick veneer and how it will look. And I think seeing a larger photo of it might help. That's the only question I guess I'm wondering about.
This is the only one I got. This is a little larger. But I can bring in an actual sample.
Or just a photograph of a different installation just to get an idea of it. I think I understand sort of the concept of having the darker garage doors, and then because that's all set back.
Yeah, I was just trying to get some contrast with the building facade since it's kind of a plain vanilla facade.
Since it's just straight.
And then.
Okay.
That's the one thing that I was on the fence. I like the overall building.
The black is for the awnings? Is that what that color board indicates?
Yeah, they'd be the same color.
Comments, Scott?
Sorry, Joe, did you have a detail of the top of the brick? Is there a little cap flashing or something?
I don't have a detail right now, but it would be flashed similar to what it's flashed right now, which is just a little sheet metal cap flashing.
Okay. Can we look at the elevation, Joe? Yeah, I like the cleanness and the simplicity of it, and as Amy was saying, there's a logic, kind of a dark piece, a light piece, and that seems nice. I guess I'd like to see just the details, what the cap flashing looks like, how thick it is, what color it is, because everything's so minimal, the details take on more importance.
What's that called?
The
cap flashing.
Cap flashing.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a nice design, and it makes something more interesting out of the existing building.
Okay. Courtney?
I agree. I think it's a nice improvement on the existing building. I think I was struggling with the dark brick also. I think probably because I'm just so used to seeing it as a light-colored building, and with the light blue, it's just a different approach.
Light blue, did you say?
There's light blue doors right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very like ocean themed. But I think it would be okay. I'm curious to see some more samples of the brick.
Okay.
I'll also make the comment that I think we need to see a landscape plan, or at least what you're proposing for this parkway area, because you are removing the existing driveway apron. So, and what's there is okay, but it really needs to be cleaned up. There's a ton of agaves that are mounding, so you could likely just harvest a bunch of pups and replant, but the ground itself needs some attention. It's full of weeds. Would be looking for some improvements there, too. And I like the idea of having the vines on the building, too. I think that's nice. So that's all I have.
Okay. Kevin?
I guess I should have asked earlier, is the chain link fencing and all that going?
That's all going to be removed, yeah.
So no new fencing or anything?
No.
And are you triggering any stormwater?
No. I've made sure that we didn't go into that quagmire. So this is all less than 500 square feet. And we're leaving the existing asphalt. We're just resealing and restriping. At least I hope. That's what I assume right now.
Crossing your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a modest proposal to update the building. It's fine.
Okay. Amy?
We haven't got your comments yet.
Okay, those more questions. No, yeah, I think overall it's a nice improvement and a nice design. I think I'm still on I guess I'm on the fence with just the different colors of the brick, not seeing like a field of it. But I like
Yeah, I think I leaned more towards a uniform color.
Yeah.
So I was going to see, when I get the samples, how much the variety is, because sometimes it's subtle enough that you really wouldn't get a sense it's an extreme difference in colors.
Yeah.
I'd like to just get like kind of a
If
subtle,
there's like
very subtle difference, if there is one.
I think that's the only thing I've been kind of questioning, and if it's more of a subtle nuance in the brick, I like the idea of that kind of the separation between where like the openings are and the columns in between. So,
okay,
yeah, I'd say if there was just more of a subtle instead of like checkered.
Okay.
But overall, I like what's being proposed.
Okay. I'm concerned about the color of the brick in contrast to the plaster. It seems to me that it's going to get very stripy. It's just light plaster and then dark vertical stripes. And I'm not convinced that this is going to look all that great, but maybe if you colored an elevation, something that would help the decision-making process. The other thing is we're just looking at this on another project where the whole issue about truncated domes when you have accessible path travel going out into the parking lot, and if that's required in this case, that we've been suggesting where possible to use a guardrail or a handrail as opposed to using the truncated domes as something that's more attractive. But in this case, it may not be appropriate. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, I'll look at that. Obviously, we would want it at the front entrance, but we can look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to use the tiled versions of those rather than the plastic slap-on truncated domes, and I don't like to use the yellow. I usually use the.
Well, now I think it's a required. Yellow is the
Are
required
we stuck
color.
with yellow
For
now?
commercial properties.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure, downtown's going to love that.
Even in PB.
Really?
Yeah, we've been.
Someone lobbied hard for those.
But I would think this could come back on the consent calendar, but leave it to someone else to make a motion. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I think in general the board likes the design of the proposed project, and there's some concern about the color of the brick. If you have actual samples, that would be helpful, and possibly a colored elevation would be helpful in the decision-making process. The board would like to see more information on the landscaping in the median, or the, what do you call that?
Parkway.
Thank you, Parkway.
Enhanced landscaping or just more information?
Both.
More information and enhanced. And provide any remaining details that you haven't done so for yet. Escutcheon and cap.
And that would be indefinite continuance to the consent calendar with a PDA?
I'm in favor of granting PDA today, yes. Or final, even. I think we're pretty...
Well, I don't think we can get it final with the comments, those comments.
Oh, pardon me. I
Can
thought...
you get final at consent?
You can get final on
Address it
consent.
as consent?
Yeah.
Yeah, pardon me. That's
Can
what I
I
was
get
looking for.
consent next week, or?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that. Final at consent, sure.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Hopkins' trip.
Are these old, Jeff?
So, substitute for you. You just need one, right?
Yeah, I just need one set.
Okay.
That's your approval sheet.
Item number 6, 2840 De La Vina Street. Is this another new item? Proposal for a new facade on the existing Ralph's Shopping Center. Also proposed are new railings and a 28 square feet of concrete sidewalk fill at the rear truck dock to expand the sidewalk for forklift use. Some ADA parking spaces will be relocated, but the overall number of parking spaces will remain the same. No new floor areas proposed, and action may be taken. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Dwight Ashdown of Ashdown Architecture, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Grocery Outlet, who is going to be the new tenant in the space. And they've expressed an interest in upgrading the facade of the existing building. The floor plan, we're going to go in and a basic tenant improvement project to meet Grocery Outlet's requirements. And the existing, this is a photograph of the existing facade, and they've expressed an interest in doing something that they've done with their other stores, which is a more current retail facade where we put some large columns with stone bases on the outside. One of the other things that would happen is it would drop the soffit over the entry, and create a shaded area entering into the building. And so it's basically proposing to put a false facade on the front of the building. The roof slope would all stay the same, but we're proposing that a new facade on the front, and then the owners of the shopping center said, "Oh, that looks great. Let's extend some of that around to the rest of the shopping center that's plugged onto the Ralph store." So this is an initial concept to show you what we are thinking of and solicit your feedback.
Okay. I see that there's no one in the audience to comment on this project, so I'll open and close public comment, and then we can go to questions from the board. I'll just start since it's one obvious one. So, here's the existing dashed in behind?
Yes.
So the ridge comes up to that point. I see. So you're just staying just barely above the existing roof?
Yes.
Okay. And it's
Yeah.
going to leave this bit here?
No, and
okay.
actually, this was a facade, a sort of concept facade from a previous project, and we overlaid it on this and said, it's basically saying it doesn't fit, i.e. it doesn't cover the existing building, so it's taking that facade and then moving it up here.
I see.
These columns got a little bit wider, things moved out, and then it stretched out to cover the slope of the roof behind.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from board members? Amy, you want to start?
So is this project just this store, or you mentioned basically doing the whole thing? Is the whole complex part of this project?
If you flip to the last sheet,
there's
a 3D drawing to say, to take this false facade project concept, and the existing rest of the shopping center has these little mansard roofs on it, and it's to put a flat facade on those with some pilaster columns out at the front of the walkway.
Do you have other drawings, or is it just
this? This is what we've done so far.
Okay.
Kevin, any questions?
It's just kind of hard to tell, for instance, on the floor plan and the site plan. Can you indicate on the site plan where the extent of those?
On that.
See the columns kind of come around.
The primary facade, the existing Ralph's building is the shaded portion. The new columns are on the sidewalk extending in front of that. And then there are new columns extending around the perimeter and then on the west side also.
You don't have any photographs of the rest of the neighborhood?
I do on my iPad if you want me to grab that.
If it's easily done.
I think so.
Then my other question is all the existing landscaping shown on their site plan?
The islands are shown, the trees are not.
So this is the generic
grocery store without?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
One last question. So you indicated that you've used this design elsewhere. Is this some sort of, is it like a corporate look? Or
It's not a corporate look per se. They have a wide range of facades that they've done on these buildings. But the examples in the photographs down at the bottom of that sheet are of another store that they did up in Napa that they liked a lot, and they would like to replicate the same look on this store.
Okay.
So that's the Ralph store is over at this at this side. This is the rest of the little shopping center. The Ralph store there.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the pieces around on the west side.
Okay. You don't have pictures of the building on the other side of the parking lot? Or adjacent?
No, that portion of the site is owned by another owner, and so this project doesn't affect that.
Yeah, generally, we like to see buildings that are nearby and get an idea of character of the, the adjacent buildings. Any other questions?
Are you keeping the existing roof structure on the?
Yes.
Okay. So it's really just a new facade?
Yes.
So, if I could ask you another question.
Of course.
This, let's see here. The columns are not really shown on this drawing, but would this projection be out over the top of this column, and then it would go back to the building here, or this would just go straight up all the way?
The majority of this facade would the upper part would be brought forward.
All the way out to here?
Yes. And so there's essentially
is that necessary?
There's essentially, there would be some depth built into this, and I think on the perspective drawing, the intention is to have the soffit essentially coming out the same depth as the large columns, and the smaller columns would also be out at that level, but then there would be some depth set back, so that it's not a completely flat facade.
So it seems like it would be more attractive if this roof went back, and these elements were back at the actual building front as opposed to projecting out. But just that's one comment. It's more of a comment. All right, I guess we're into comments. Would you like to start, Amy?
I guess it would be because it's pretty large. I think it's because it's a large building, and to get the idea of what this facade is going to look like, it'd be helpful to get both primary elevations, like the one on De La Vina, because you would be changing both of those, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think it kind of gets lost a little bit in this 3D model, and I think too, because you're keeping the roof behind, it would be really helpful to see a section cut through where the Ralph's is, so we can get an idea of what the depth of that facade is, and how it's going to sort of integrate into the building. And just some more photographs of just that complex, just so that we can see sort of what you're proposing and how it fits into that shopping center. So, but I do think, the facade can definitely use, that building can definitely use some improvements, but I think it would be helpful to get to see more drawings together to get a understanding of what you're proposing.
Okay.
Kevin.
Thank you, Amy. I guess my initial reaction is that it's certainly an improvement. I would recommend that you look at some alternate schemes as far as the main elevation and how that relates to the neighborhood and Santa Barbara as a whole. I understand they're a bit of, it's a chain, so they want to have a similar look, but maybe there's something that can be done to integrate it more into the location.
Right.
And materials and landscaping as well. I think just sort of big picture, I don't mind the height. I think that's fine. I think you probably need it to get a clear sense of where the main entry is and all that. So I think sort of big picture items, I think it's in the ballpark, but I think that the final appearance, I think it needs some more study.
Okay. Thanks. Courtney.
I'm having a hard time understanding how this architectural style applies in this neighborhood and in Santa Barbara. I mean, I've seen this type of design before, but there's not a lot of it here. In particular, I think the form of the roof, this whole element, it's just, I'm not seeing how that applies to our community. Looking at the wood detailing too, that just seems a little off to me. Looking at this building and at this portion of the shopping center, it is dated, but I think there's some charm to the building as it currently exists. If you could pull up your photos. The mansard roof's a little funny, but looking at some of the detailing here and these angled roof forms, I think are interesting. And I think it would be detrimental to see those elements go away. They're indicative of this particular era. So I think, there might be some way to work around that, but more of what I've seen in terms of retail design in our community is using the existing buildings and having very minimal signage and otherwise not making very many large-scale architectural improvements. So I think those are my comments.
Okay. Scott.
I think I agree with the comments so far. I mean, when I look at this building, it's not unattractive, but it doesn't really fit Santa Barbara to my eye. And it looks like a type of building you'd be looking at, and between you and the building there'd be 500-car parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of height and frontality to it. And the way the Ralph's is now, it's really in the side of a parking lot. And so all this kind of puffed up frontality doesn't seem necessarily needed in this location. I mean, like Courtney's notion of something more subtle and modest, I think maybe fine. I don't think you'll ever really experience that symmetry. You're coming from one side. And like she mentioned, the truss element is a nice element, but there isn't a lot of that going on in Santa Barbara. Right. So I think it needs to be revised. And the building, the way it's designed now, is one big piece of signage with that gigantic sign in the center. If you look at our sign code, the sign you're going to end up with is going to be teeny tiny. So it's going to change the nature of how you think about it. There's some funny stuff happening with the proportions of these columns. They feel very thin, and I know you're up against the wall between parking and the sidewalk. We typically don't do that in Santa Barbara. We like things to have a little more dimensionality to them and look a little less cut out. And so that for the element wrapping the corner.
Right.
It'd be nice to see some hierarchy in that element wrapping the corner, a high point or a low point, and a little more interest rather than just marching on the same thing.
And I think there's a lot of kind of repetition and maybe not enough hierarchy in the depths of the various, why would the coping have to be the same? You'd think this canopy would be a lot thicker than the coping at the top of the building. They're all kind of the same height, which has a certain level of monotony to it. I think more hierarchy and interest would be there. Not opposed to the stone element, but it just, the general impression is it doesn't look like Santa Barbara.
Right.
And because it was designed for Napa. But so I think you're going to have to come back with a new design that is more endemic to the area. And I think, you could keep the bones of this roof and that roof structure, and I think you could still sell the project to the board here. That's my comments. Does that make sense?
It does, but what I'm trying to resolve in my own mind I understand exactly what everyone has said, but there's really two different approaches of whether we do a significant modification to the facade of this building or if we keep the bones.
Yeah, I think you could do either, but I don't think this is the answer.
Okay.
Okay. I'm kind of on the same line of thinking. I think that putting a flat facade to get rid of this long, low sloping roof is not a bad idea. I think it could be an improvement, but trying to take a design that's worked in another community and just stamp it on there, that's never seen that approach work well in Santa Barbara. So
right.
I think the refinement, creating some real depth, making it feel like that if you have exposed wood elements, that they're not just stuck on there to look like they're supporting, but they're actually functioning as support, or at least appear that way. More finesse with the parapet treatments. This is a projecting roof element. This is just a parapet cap. So again, why are those two matching?
Right.
So I think you could do something really nice with the general approach, and I think an upgrade to this shopping area is very much needed, but needs some more study and refinement. So who would like to make a motion? And do you want to come back in 2 weeks, or do you want more time to study it?
I think it's going to take more than 2 weeks to rework it.
Okay. So number one, we would need more photographic documentation of other buildings adjacent, across the street, across the parking lot, so we get a better idea of what this block of Santa Barbara looks like.
And excuse me, we'd like those printed, just not on your iPad, but...
Of course. Are you saying on a 1/2 by 11 or on the drawing?
Could be on the drawings.
Okay.
But we need a separate set for the file, not just on the drawings. So just a large set, just print it on paper is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think if other board members may have a different view on this, but I think that the general view of the board is that a revision of the facade of the building and a reworking of the visible roof areas could be acceptable with a sort of a refinement and upgrading of the approach that's being taken. And some of the things that were mentioned is that the columns out at the adjacent to the parking lot should look like they're more dimensional, should have greater thickness to them. That the roof, projecting roof areas should look as though they're functioning as projecting roof areas, and the underside should be treated as such. That there should be more play and depth and study done to the parapet treatments and how those differ from the roof elements proposed, and the exposed wood elements should look like they're structurally functioning as opposed to just facade treatment. Any other comments?
To see all of the elevations that are going to be updated.
Yes, a more complete development of the design so we can understand more of the relationships of what's being proposed.
Yeah, and even like a section through the front area where the Ralph's entrance is, so we can understand how thick this kind of flat facade is and the dimensions. Starting in that perspective would just be helpful to see them all.
Could we provide a design style that's more characteristic of the neighborhood? Is that a fair comment?
Yes. So I'll make that motion.
So
And-
definite continuance.
Yes.
Okay.
We need a seconder.
I'll second.
Seconded by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And that concludes our meeting for today, this evening. Do we have an architectural quote today?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great.
Mies van der Rohe. I have two quotes. Mies van der Rohe, less is more, and Robert Venturi, less is a bore.
Thanks for that, Scott.